Hi, we're having a conversation with John A. Allison. He's retired CEO of BB&T Bank, and he is also Distinguished Professor of Practice at Wake Forest University. Professor Dr. Allison, why is self-esteem important in business?
That's a very good question. In fact, self-esteem is extremely important in business. I'll give you a simple observation. At higher levels in organizations, the reason people fail is almost never because they aren't smart enough, and it's almost never because they haven't been well educated enough. It's almost always because they have some low self-esteem issue that causes them to act in a self-destructive manner. In a deeper sense, self-esteem is the foundation for happiness. And happiness is the end of the game, right? And I use happiness not in having a good time on Friday night, but happiness in a life well lived. Hard-earned happiness. Happiness from doing the right kind of things, having a sense of purpose, having a meaningful life. Sometimes people in business get confused. They think money's the end of the game. Nothing wrong with money. Money's a good thing, but money's not an end. It can be a means to an end. It's not an end. Happiness is the end of the game. And it's interesting because most people have self-esteem backwards. They don't really understand what self-esteem comes from. Three kind of thoughts about self-esteem. First, self-esteem is fundamentally self-confidence in your ability to live and be successful given the facts of reality. So self-esteem is earned by how you live your life. Nobody can give you self-esteem. You can't give anybody self-esteem. You cannot give your children self-esteem. Live your life with integrity and raise your self-esteem. Second thought about self-esteem is in order to have a high level of self-esteem, you must believe you're capable of being good. A lot of people have learned very young that because they're a human being, they're bad because they're selfish, which is kind of a ridiculous idea because anything that's alive has to act in its self-interest to stay alive, right? Humans are living entities. We have to act in our self-interest to stay alive. And it's important to get the proper principle in that regard because a lot of people think about acting in your self-interest as taking advantage of other people. Taking advantage of other people doesn't work. Nobody's going to trust you, right? You see that in business. But also, each of us, you, have as much right to your life as anybody else. So you shouldn't sacrifice. So you shouldn't take advantage of other people. You shouldn't sacrifice, but what you need to be is a trader. And traders create value for value. In our business, we help our clients achieve economic success and financial security. They let us make a profit doing it. We get better together. In fact, life is about win-win relationships and figuring out how I can benefit, but also how you can benefit. And that is a fundamental principle. And when you do that, when you create those win-win relationships, you raise your self-esteem. You have a sense of success. Here's a deeper issue. For most people watching this video, work is going to be the single biggest driver of their self-esteem because you spend a disproportionate amount of time, effort, and energy at work. And so work drives your self-esteem, which is really why work is so important. Something I say to all the employees of BB&T. It's real important to BB&T that you do your job well, but it's far, far, far more important to you. Might fool me about how well you do your job, might fool your boss about how well you do your job, but you'll never fool you. And if you don't do your work the best you can possibly do it, give me your level of skill, give me your level of knowledge, you can't do the impossible. If you don't do your work the best you can possibly do it, you will lower your self-esteem. Now here's the good news, the flip's also true. If you do your work the best you can possibly do it, given your level of skill, given your level of knowledge, you will raise your self-esteem. And that's more important than whether you get money or you get a promotion because it's about who you are as a human being. By the way, I say the same thing to students. If you approach your university education and you just kind of do it halfway, maybe you'll make acceptable grades, maybe you'll graduate, but you will have lowered your self-esteem in that process. If you go after your university and you do the best you can, that means maybe you don't make super grades, but you're doing the best you can, you'll actually raise your self-esteem. So self-esteem is the foundation for happiness, and it has to be earned. It has to be earned by a very thoughtful, productive, focused life.
You mentioned the possibility of knowing that it is possible to be good. What is to be good?
Well, I think good is in the sense of having a sense of purpose, which includes two basic components. I think everybody that I know wants to make the world a better place to live. So I think that the pursuit of purpose in the context of making the world a better place to live. By the way, that can be done by businesses. Businesses provide better products, better services. They're making the world a better place to live. The good doctors, good teachers, good homemakers make the world a better place to live. But I think that you also should pursue that purpose in the context of doing things that you want to do for you, because you have the right to your own life. So the beginning of being good is having a purposeful life that makes the world a better place to live, but at the same time creates a sense of meaning and value to you, doing something that you want to do for yourself. And as you're pursuing that good, you use your means of success and happiness. This is basically your capacity to think. You have a disciplined mind, an organized mind, and in that process you become more productive, and that raises your self-esteem, which enables you to have meaningful human relationships. Because part of being good that's related to being happy is having those kind of meaningful relationships. So good to me is about a life well lived. It's not about doing artificial or superficial things. It's about having a clear sense of values, a clear sense of purpose, and living consistent with those purposes.
And finally, you mentioned that reality is important. Why is it that reality is important?
You don't get to make it up. And unfortunately, a lot of people think they can make it up. For example, a baby's born at the hospital here this morning. Well, that baby opens her eyes, and guess what? Mom's here, Dad's here, the doctor's here, the nurse is here, we're here. That baby doesn't get to make it up. In fact, that baby's task in life is to figure out how to stay alive, be successful, and be happy given the facts of reality. At some point, you were that baby. You were born into this world, and you've been trying to figure out how to stay alive, be successful, and be happy given the facts of reality. Unfortunately, the majority of the people on the planet are in resistance to reality. They don't want it to be. And that is a very dangerous place to be, because it causes people to do some dumb things. Particularly, they evade. They get presented with facts that they know they ought to examine, but they refuse to examine them. And when you evade, you're detached from reality, and that is the most common reason that people get in trouble. I grew up as a lender to small businesses. I saw this a number of times. In fact, the number one reason small businesses fail. The leader of that business, maybe the business is going along fine, but something happens at home, something happens in the business, they don't want to see it, and they evade, and they run that business right into the ground. A more spectacular story, Citigroup, largest financial institution in the world, hires a group of geniuses out of MIT, out of Harvard to run their affordable housing, now subprime lending business. May even have been a decent business when they started it. I guarantee you, long before any of us heard about subprime lending, those geniuses knew something was going wrong. But what did they do? They evaded. Why did they evade? Because they would have less bonuses themselves, the company would make less money, and they evaded the facts and ran that company right into the ground. Successful business people always are reality grounded, and it's a huge competitive advantage in life, because most people unfortunately evade, and a lot of people just don't want to face the facts, and that's when you get in trouble, when you can't deal objectively with the facts.
Well, Dr. Allison, thank you very much for sharing these ideas with us, and thank you too.